So for months, people have been furious about game key cards. You know, those little fake physical media game cartridges that they have on the Switch 2? Well, a manufacturer has come out that makes Switch 2 cartridges, and they confirmed that new sizes are coming that are beyond the 64 gigabyte limits that the Switch 2 has, which means developers may no longer need to rely on game key cards. So we win, right? Hopefully. All right, we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to touch on this. Nintendo sent that survey just the other day as well, if you weren't aware. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I think we might be seeing game key cards slowly being phased away right now, which is a good sign in my book. We were right, guys. Nintendo's physical game model is falling apart as we speak, and it's not just about downloads or cartridges or game keys anymore. It's about trust. Because lots of people went out there thinking they're getting all these brand new Switch 2 games just to find out that if you bought a physical Switch game, the entire thing's just a license to download like 80% of the actual video game and the content on there. But now, Nintendo just gave us the clearest sign yet that they're thinking about phasing this mess out potentially. And what they're not saying in the new survey might be the loudest message of them all. So they had a survey just this week. I took it. I'm sure you guys took it. It was interesting. They had some questions about physical releases and game key cards and digital and all that. I stuck to my guns. I emphasized that to me, collecting physical games or having the option for our physical games to actually be physical games is important because I'm a collector, because it's important to have access to the full game, because the resale value and all those, I guess, good answers that everybody that likes to collect physical games gets. Now, some people are like, oh, well, game key cards, you can resell them too and stuff. It's still not the same, guys. It's a pretty crummy halfway in, halfway out option that a lot of game developers seem to be taking for various reasons. But let's talk about this game key card controversy in case it's the first time you're here. These are fake physical releases that look like Switch releases, but they don't actually hold the full game. PlayStation and Xbox have been guilty of this as well, but Nintendo's been under fire for quite some time because a huge chunk of their launch library are these game key releases from third-party members and stuff like that. You've probably seen these. Let's say you go to Walmart, you grab what looks like a fully boxed game, pop into your Switch, and then boom, there's like a mandatory 25 gigabyte download before you can even play the game. That's not a cartridge, guys. That's literally a receipt for a full game download. And publishers claim that it's to save space, it's to reduce costs, and all that nonsense that we've been hearing from them time and time again. But in all honesty, it's eroded the trust in physical media. Again, these are not actual full physical releases. Remember, you could buy a game on older consoles like the GameCube and the Wii, and you actually have the game on the cartridge or the CD. With Nintendo, now 9 times out of 10 on the Switch 2 you don't. And yeah, it's because the cartridge sizes are too small or too big or it's just too expensive. All these reasons. But for collectors, especially for collectors, people that are about preservation of video games, or anyone that has bad internet. What if you don't have good internet? Oh, get good. It's the modern era. You need internet. I think this feels like a slap in the face to each and every single one of those gamers. And what's worse is these cartridges are useless if the servers ever go down. Are they going to go down anytime soon? No, but you never know. You never know. At any moment, these servers for any of these games, they can just shut them down at the drop of a hat. Say that company goes out of business. Say they just want to be pricks and they don't think they're making enough money from that game. They literally could just delist those games and those servers will be down and it'll be no good. Those games will essentially just be paperweights at this time. Oh, Eric, but if you bought the game digital only, it'd be the same thing. True, and that's fair, but I would rather have a digital only copy of a game than a pointless non-physical version of a game. Because if enough people buy these game key cards, they're just going to phase out actual real physical media that has the full game on it. I understand why people don't understand that. If we don't support the game key things, then developers will take note and be like, hey, Cyberpunk did really good on the Switch 2. That wasn't a game key. That was an actual full cartridge release. Maybe we should go that way because the consumers are choosing to support full physical media. You see what I'm saying? If you go one way, the people are just going to keep making it. And they're going to keep making game key cards because you're supporting their wallets. You're supporting their companies. All right? Now, Here's this survey. Let's talk about this survey that Nintendo did. It said everything by saying nothing, okay? Because this survey was actually quite weird. It was the real kicker, actually. Nintendo put this survey out asking players about their buying habits, specifically digital versus physical. And they asked things like, do you prefer digital games over physical games? What motivates your choice? How often do you buy physical? But guess what was missing? Not once did they directly mention game key cards. They kind of skirted around it. But no questions about cartridges that only hold partial data is very alarming. No mention of the backlash from the consumers. Nothing. It's like they know these game key cards are a problem, and they're not ready to admit it publicly yet. And that silence is where the truth is hiding. Okay, game companies, corporations are not going to come out and be like, "Hey guys, we were wrong." Nintendo would never do that. To be completely honest, I don't think Nintendo would ever do that. But them not saying it was more than enough. And if you took the survey, I'm sure you noticed some of these questions. Hopefully you guys answered them completely true. Let's be fair in this assumption, right? Part of this was technical. Okay, Switch cartridges used to max out at 32 gigabytes on the Switch OG, and that was fine for most of the games, but bigger third-party titles like Call of Duty, Cyberpunk, some of these bigger RPGs, they can't fit everything on the cartridge. 32 gigabytes isn't much, especially when you see PlayStation games that are well over 80, closer to 100 gigabytes. So publishers basically split the games. They put the base content on the cartridge, and then the rest is a download, like you have to download the data. Some companies do 2-disc, like the Final Fantasy games and so forth. The worst thing about this is that it's a download in a box. We've seen that with like Split Fiction and a few other games where there's no actual game on the cartridge at all. And it's basically physical games that are turned into physical scams. Now something's changed, which is what I mentioned earlier. There's new cartridge tech. A major hardware company or a manufacturer just confirmed something big, that there will be 64 gigabyte Switch 2 cartridges that are finally coming, which is overdue. They should have had this before launch. They should have. I think this opens the door to full physical releases again. There's no downloads needed, no game key card nonsense, and in my opinion, that changes everything. I think they should go bigger, actually, bigger than 64. Just go to a full hundo. Go to a full hundo, right? Developers can fit their entire game now on one cart, just like the good old days, which means there's finally no excuse to sell a half-empty cartridge in a $60 box. Those days could potentially be gone. I'm sure we might get some cheapskates still, like third parties and smaller indie developers and stuff, but if Nintendo's quietly preparing for that transition, it would explain why they didn't even mention game key cards in the survey. You know, the survey language didn't even mention them at all. It was completely gone. It's like they're not defending them. They didn't stand up for game key cards in there, which is interesting. They're phasing them out. So fans online are calling the game key situation deception. It's not physical if it needs a download. I returned mine when I saw the download required sticker. Digital only is fine, but don't sell me a lie. And that's how I feel. I'm good with digital games. Just don't sell me a physical and call it a physical. You've seen plenty of YouTube videos, mine included. There's Reddit threads. There's even developers that have voiced frustration with this. People want a clear choice, guys. They want physical or digital, not this Frankenstein-type hybrid that lies somewhere in between that will die when the servers go offline. And now with these new cartridge sizes, that choice might finally return, but we have to keep calling it out. All right, we have to keep calling it out. So why does this matter? Why does this matter for you guys? Well, first of all, we need to think about what does this mean for the Switch 2. If Nintendo fully embraces these high-capacity cartridges and ditches that game key cards, it's a massive win for gamers. But if they don't and they continue this half-digital charade, the trust is gone. The trust will be gone here, guys. This is more than about storage space, too, all right? It's about ownership of what you're buying, ownership of your games. It's about game preservation. And it's about being honest with people who still believe in buying games that you can hold in your hand. People that believe in physical media. Nintendo, the next move is yours. We're watching. We are watching here. If you guys care about the future of physical games, like, comment, and share this video with someone who's been burned by these game key card releases. And don't forget to hit that subscription button. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace out.